accent. So you have the so-called American twang for whatever area you live in, whether you're in the Midwest, whether you're in East Coast, or you're in the South. You pick up, you speak like those people speak in English, right? Then we have our accent, or our so-called Kenyan accent, that we think is Kenyan because it's what, we speak with our flat tone. You're not drawling, you're not twanging. But when you pick the phone up and you call people at home, they're like, why are you twanging? But you're very convinced that you're actually speaking with the same accent or the same twang that you left Kenya with. It's different.
Me, I am.
You may say, me, I am. You may even say that you're going to a small meeting. You can use those sayings.
Yeah.
In fact, we even have T-shirts that say it. But trust,
me, I am Kenyan.
Yes. Me, I love Nairobi. But trust me, it is not. And it's just something that you end up doing. For instance, even names. I'll try to use a name like, I'll use a name that you know and we know. Cecil is?
Cecil.
That's British.
Okay. What's the American?
Cecil.
Cecil. Okay.
Huge difference. But if you're sticking to what you're supposed to stick to, you should stick to the way you have always done it, Cecil, as the British. But when you vuka sakafu and you tell somebody Cecil, they're like, huh? We say Cecil's like, oh, I have a relative called Cecil. So I'm just giving that as an example.
So I think that part is understandable. Like instead of saying route, you say route. That's understandable.
Correct, but why should you change? For names, why should you change? You see, route, that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
But for a name, you shouldn't change because that's, in essence, you're kind of losing yourself, for lack of a better word. You should stick to your guns. Because, if you're Otieno, you're Otieno. You're not going to be Otinio. You know what I'm saying? So that's the whole point of what I'm trying to say, is that we do these things so that we can fit in. And that's why you find yourself with an accent that you're putting on, that you're embellishing, or that you're adding other things to it. So if you're in the South, it's Southern. If you're in the Midwest, it's Midwest, or so on and so forth. Because you're trying to blend within the society of wherever it is that you're in. And that's why you'll find certain people who are dealing with folks in different places, they want to try to blend, because that Swa accent is not going to cut it, or your communication is going to be nil to none. It's not going to come across.
Okay. Hapa naona Slay anasema, I never thought I had an accent till I had my 5-year-old mimicking me. And then, let me see, Lolotsa anauliza very interesting questions. Where are those Kenyans who have lived in India, China, Korea, Sweden, and with their accents? And this also presents, a very interesting question. Even Kenyans who go to other non-US, non-British countries that speak English, they never pick up. So you find a Kenyan, ameenda kaishi Qatar.
I am yet to hear.
Ameenda kaishi Qatar, but they come back with an American accent.
Like, what up?
Like how does that make sense?
YouTube.
How does that make sense?
Nonsense.
This was before YouTube.
Can I get in on this?
Yes,
Micah.
Micah, please.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Let's be realistic over here. Most of the things is that when we equate success, or when society tries to follow something, it usually is based on what's on the media, what's being shown over there. Right now, the epitome of success is a bowler, a gangster in movies, a tech nadi, or a musician. Black culture sells. Just like sex. Sex equals you, black culture is the second thing that sells. Everything wants to either have a sexual appeal, or if it doesn't have a sexual appeal, has something that has the black culture into it. Right? So the measure of success, you see the house helps of Sigi Wapi, Sigi Black King, Cruz, Sigi Nini, all of them. Everything that's showing this hip new successful outlook right now has a hip hoppy Afro culture to it. So everybody right now, the shows they're watching, everything they're consuming, everything has that embodiment on it. That is why every black successful man wants to sound like a gangster, which wants to sound like that African American successful output into it. Even if you look into fashion, if you look into how the young kids are growing right now, all young kids right now, if you look at them, have a resemblance of Quavo, Offset, age group, out on outside of Kahan gangster. Wow. It's just like when we were young, we used to wear baggy t-shirts, baggy trousers, right? Like we had that hardcore look that was for them. There was a time we were wearing Timberlands in Nairobi, unachapana jua, una sweat mguu, but uju Timberland ni viatu za winter huko. But because guess what, New York gangster was also gangsterism was also selling, what is also in the media. So the media has a very, 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 very strong part in playing into this. You look at successful football players, successful sportsmen, Lewis Hamilton, a lot of them have that Afro-pop culture that is rocking for them. So that media plays aspect. Nobody wants to look cool, cheap, and rich. So that is why you see, if we go back to that show when you saw Diamond saying I'm 35, so like he's trying to, even the way he's talking, he wants to prove that, yeah, this is my G. He wants to prove that, right? But in reality, he can't prove that because it's not yake. But he wants to prove that for TV. He wants to prove that for show. He wants to show people that despite all this, I have got this. He is rich. He has everything that he needs to be on that show. But people were laughing at him. But how many people would trade in their good? How many people would trade in their good British accents to of the finances that Diamond have? A lot of people would do that, but they were still laughing at him. So let's not pretend that the media doesn't play a big role into this. Right now, for me, I used to be that until I started working in corporate. When I went to Dubai, and I realized that the Arabs never bothered if you understood them or not. They kept talking. Then I came and realized, working with Europeans, that Europeans don't understand English. You will understand their broken English whether you want it or not. They will never try to make it easier for you. And I asked myself, why am I trying to make it easier for them?
Exactly.
Ukinisikia umenisikia,
Yeah.
hujanisikia hujanisikia. And that has always been my aim from these days. I don't try to code switch for you. If I could switch naturally, sawa. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I said it. Nakutumia email, usome basi.
You know,
Because I believe reading doesn't have an accent.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Micah has brought in a very solid point, because the question is, where you're pretending that you cannot pronounce the name Badawy. You pretend you cannot pronounce the name Bandio, but you can pronounce Schwarzenegger. And you can hear what he's saying. And you can hear what he's saying without subtitles. So that's the reason why, to me, that argument of I can't hear you, I think it's an argument that's brought up, but I think it doesn't hold a lot of water, especially if you're a Kenyan. Like Kenyans, actually, our flat English is very understandable in any part. In any part of the world, yes, maybe you come from a country like Vietnam, and maybe the way you pronounce certain words might be difficult, but the English that we speak in Kenya, the flat English that we speak in Kenya, is very easy to understand. So there's no excuses. There are some interesting comments here that have been coming through the course of this conversation. Brown Sugar anasema we made fun of Chibarbar. No people. I like how Nikokoth made a press conference speaking Swahili after the Olympics loss. Mimi nitaongea Sheng, which is good. And I think it's great that we are now living in an age where Sheng became kind of mainstreamed, like people in marketing and people in a lot of, like mainstream spaces realize that this is the language of the masses, like you either go to them or they're not gonna buy your product. And I think that unapologeticness is very good. And I also want to mention the time when Kina Omosh came to the States, a very, very long time ago. We're not gonna mention when. That era
1972.
that era of people who came, especially of people who came, let me say, in the 90s. Let me not even go further back.
Sorry.
In the 90s, I think that was the people who came then and before. Those are the people who are most affected by wanting to be all American. And why do I say this? This is because when our group came, I came in 2003. When our group came, this was the first generation that had seen a different president, had seen this change in culture in Kenya, where people were suddenly proud of wearing the Kenyan t-shirt, the Kenyan bracelet. Then suddenly this group of people came that was so unapologetically Kenyan. I remember people used to look at us at Kenyan events oh, you guys are talking Swa, are you still, and it was kind of like with distaste, but at a certain point it picked up, and now even those guys who had pretended to have forgotten Swa now had to catch up, because that culture became the dominant Kenyan culture here in the US. People were so proud of using Sheng, if you're a Sheng speaker, of using Swa, and of just using that Kenyan lingo. Like it started shifting at that point, and that's a point when like a lot of now these Kenyan artists had started coming. So that culture started like kind of changing a little bit, which I felt like was a good thing for Kenyans living in the diaspora. I mean, sometimes people get shocked at us when we go back home. Like you guys sound like you've been.
Don't even start.
You guys sound like you've been around here, not necessarily on the way we talk, but I'm just talking about
lingo.
On lingo and issues. Nanini.
Because what you're talking about is accent. And let me say this. I recall one time, you're traveling, Menda 254, and people are shocked that, maybe you're up to it with maybe the lingo.
You still speak Swahili or even your mother tongue.
Exactly. And that shocks them. But I wanted to say this. Most of us over here probably watch baseball or basketball. And especially when it comes to baseball, you find that even the guys who have been signed either from Cuba, Dominican, some of those heavy hitters, some of those guys who are making money, wanakuangana nani?
Translators, yeah. They don't have time.
And a guy has probably been here in the Americas for maybe 2-3 years, 4 years, or whatever. Busekwa nani?
Translator. Some even up to 10 years.
Okay. Translate iko hapo. Lakini, you find that there's a struggle to want to be accepted, and sometimes I feel that I feel that sometimes Kenyans want to be accepted, even in a point where we do not need to twang or change our accents. I'm talking to Ali. Naongelesha Ali. We are talking in English.
Yeah.
Or I'm talking to Micah. Or I'm talking to Omosh.
Unaanza kuleta accent.
And I'm like, yo, I'm saying shine. And I'm like, yo, Gade.
It's you and me.
It's me and you, Gade.
Yeah.
Unaweza, you can say, Gade, unajua. You can punguza. But I'm talking to Ali. Or, let me give a big shout out to my cousin who is in the studio, lakini hataki kuonekana, Wycliffe.
Is he hiding?
Jadi, he's hiding, but it's okay, I understand.
The only person who hides when it comes to do is Baba Hanya. So I don't understand why he's
Lawrence
hiding.
Kenya. But, there's that one of you, I'm talking to Ali. I'm not Mjuku or Omosh or even Micah. But I'm weighing, not
only winning, you're bringing that ebonics. And you're using N-words.
Yeah. And I'm like, Gade, it's just me here.
That is one.
And I don't get that. I don't know if Nigerians do that. I don't know if Ghanaians do that. But I know in the Kenyan community, it happens.
It happens a lot.
And I am waiting for someone to tell me it doesn't happen because you know what? I'll call you a liar.
No, it happens a lot.
Of course.
Yeah. It happens a lot, not only here in the US, but back home in Nairobi. And
man, Nairobi is bad.
Yeah, and
what?
Nairobi is
when
bad.
I'm in Kilifi, I don't manage. So,
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting when you start looking at Nairobi, as someone who lived in Nairobi, when you start looking at it from the outside.
From the outside looking in.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's sad.
And let me also add, yeah, the problem now also becomes, so I've met somebody, let's say from Europe, some city, Kisumu City, tuko hapa, and he's talking, hey, Omera, what he gives or whatever, and you're like, for example, you're speaking, Sheng or whatever, and you're there, you're probably looking, analyzing, like, what is this guy telling me, man? What exactly is he trying to establish?
You see,
and I hate that. Like, I would rather mi niongee na msewa kutoka 254 dialect yake, even if it's from Wargadud ama Turkana
or Marsabit.
Yeah, you speak with that one. If you speak Swahili in that one, it's sour.
And in Kenya we have very beautiful accents.
Oh my God!
But I think here's a problem. And let's be honest. Nairobians are very hostile people.
Very.
And Nairobian, and here I'm also speaking as a Nairobian.
And by the way,
yeah,
it's on the other side. Those guys, and I'll speak as a guy from Central Mountain. Some of those guys are very hostile.
No, but I'm saying when I talk about hostility from Nairobians, like when it comes to Nairobians, first of all, we can identify each other very quick.
Yes.
It takes a few. It just takes a quick 2-3 conversations to identify each other. Ni kama vile not even necessarily by neighborhood, but just knowing that this is a Nairobian. So I think in Kenya there's this issue of where sometimes people come from up country,
yes,
and then they're trying to fit in Nairobi,
yes,
and then they're not accepted in that Nairobi vibe,
yes,
and then now you come out here to the US. And now you're now on another level where you're trying to get accepted, like in this American
level is the same
in this American system.
Mm-hmm.
So now you find yourself with an interesting accent, like either maybe like a Meru accent or a Kamba accent, and then you're trying to combine some Ebonics in there to go back home na kutisha the Nairobians, mm-hmm, who are making fun of you, that now you speak Ebonics. But you see the worst thing with Nairobians. The thing is,
Nairobians speak the same.
But now you see, the worst thing with Nairobians, is that they will tend to make fun of you, especially when you have that accent and you're trying to throw in some Ebonics in it, which is not a good thing that Nairobians do. But let's just speak honesty here.
They do.
That's just what happens.
Yes.
And I think and also the aspect that people were being forced to speak English and try to speak English in a certain way when they were in schools, and when they tried to speak vernacular they would be given, I don't know, a disc. I was so shocked to find that out. I never knew about that until, mm-hmm, when I was grown up and someone told me that in schools up country that's what happens. Like you speak in mother tongue, you're given some disc, which is some form of punishment, which I think that's just very scary.
I'll say this is, and I think you mentioned this, but come to find out, like, let's say for example in Central, mother tongue was the language and lingo for education, I think until maybe 9 or 10. 9 years or 10 years old.
That was pre-post independence.
Pre-post independence,
yeah,
right? But also even after that, you find that at some point certain things were taught still in Okuyu. And that is from people that I've talked to. But now at 9, 10, there's a switch. Kiswahili,
mm-hmm,
English. Lazima adjust.
Yeah.
you have to adjust, because now that is now probably, let's say that's the curriculum, that is what is required of, you know, and you if you're not one of those guys who are mother, but you understand, you're like, you know what, why is it so? And you're right, like when it comes to Nai, some of, you know, Nai guys can be very
hostile,
are very hostile, you know, and they are the ones who are on the forefront of like mchongo ano deep,
those dark humor. Nairobi is a city of dark humor. If you don't understand dark humor, utapata heart attack.
And the funny thing is, now imagine Nairobi to upcountry is very dark. Now imagine sasa wewe when msewa, let's say Umo versus now Kileleshwa, ama Nairobi West. I'm not calling out Ali, but I'm saying, you know, wasewa Nairobi West.
Nairobi West look like cool kids, bana.
Cool kids. But you see also that then you know, you find that even now within Nai, you find that there are divisions. Lingo. Lingua. And it's only when you come here when everybody now is in the same
Everyone is in
bucket.
the same boat.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from. Whether you're from Wargadud, Turkana, Wajir, Central, Coast, it doesn't matter.
Everyone is in the same boat.
You are in the same bucket because you guys now are the minority.
Correct.
You're the minority.
So mjipange.
So you have to jipanga, and when kujipanga, that means you have to create an alliance. And creating an alliance means that, you know what I have to pull Ali. Hata kama alikuwa mzee wa Nairobi West, na mimi nilikuwa mzee wa Kangundo ama whatever, this guy has to be my ally. Haya, I have to talk to Omosh. I have to pull Omosh to my side. Hata kama yeye ni mzee wa Europe, some seat. But guess what? All of us, we are suffering. We're in the same pot.
But one thing I'll tell you, you know, like on a positive note about Nairobi guys, you know, because Nairobi guys sometimes we tend to get a bad rap. But on a positive note is that Nairobians tend to be proud of, you know, like how they speak, how they sound. So they have no problem with you guy, my guy, you know, like if that's a lingo that's in, they're proud of it, you know, like they'll never feel small about using it, or whether they're using Sheng, they'll never feel small about it. So I think everyone else from every other part of Kenya needs to own, you know, like if it's a way of speaking, if it's a lingo, if it's an accent, they just need to own it. When you own it and when you're proud of it, nobody will care. Because I think the moment when people smell blood is when they start noticing that you're trying to sound a certain way and you can't. Then now the dark humor starts. And amongst Nairobians, we understand the dark humor. But that's where the dark humor starts. But then I think if you come proudly with your accent, you
don't
know,
force
like...
it, don't push it,
yeah,
don't force it.
Just come proudly with whatever accent, just speak naturally. I think you'll be okay. So back to Diamond, I think if he just spoke English naturally, the way it came to him, I think, you know, like nobody would be talking about it.
But Ali, I have something to say here. The thing is that, you know, the way Diamond spoke it, like people are saying, we're assuming that he was under pressure to do something or doing that. But let's not forget, but that's the majority of African youth right now. Even people in Nairobi right now. I've had people in Nairobi. We're all in groups whereby we've had people in Nairobi, even when you're chatting with them, when you're talking something, they use the word nigger, fuck, blah, more than you. And you're like, okay, calm down. Can you just talk normal English? Because you find they want to fit into that level. They assume in a certain level where you speak the way. People assume that speaking in a certain, with those they're born, speaking in a certain way makes you recognized as cool, as hip. and you want to keep that persona, which doesn't happen, and that's the problem right now. That's why we see that there was that at first, like the guy trying to speak in what he's not used to. He could have said I'm just 31 and spoken. If we follow that show, the lady Kanye has that heavy South African Zulu accent, and she was rocking it proudly without trying to be anybody else. Two-Face wife, and the other Nigerian Igbo accent, heavy on it. Didn't even try to do anything and try to fix it. The other guys, Andile tried to be a Bonix. Ule mwingine ule kipara was trying to put it like that. That other guy, Swanky, totally Nigerian, right? And Zari tried to sound, again,
so sophisticated.
Yeah. So it's a thing of, as you've said, you have to be proud and owning your accent and working with it. But the problem is a majority of African youth right now assume sounding with that ebonic African American sound is what it is.
Now,
and that's a problem.
Now, let me say something. You know, I'm loving the way there's a lot of back and forth and communication going on the chat, on the page. But I want to pick up DJ Tucha's comment. You know, guys in Kenya calling each other the N-word makes me cringe.
Yeah, that's...
Not only you, bro, me too. Yes. And it is something that I've said here. I've communicated actually even with some of my cousins in the 254. I'm like, yo, you guys, you have to understand the genesis
meaning.
And the origin and the meaning
and
you
the
need
context.
to chill, yeah.
And I'm not saying you know, I'm like, yo, my man's, my G, my N, you know, I can, off air, inbox, I you know, me and Micah, you know, I'll be like, yo, but understanding and just using it haphazardly, for me becomes, I cringe. And it has always been an issue. And it will always be an issue. Because, again, I understand the weight that it holds and it carries.
Correct.
When I wasn't born here, I don't know. Now, your kids, on the other hand, your sons, not your daughters, your sons, born here, raised here, going on, whatever, maybe they can use it. But even you yourself, chances are, even if your nephew was born here and you hear him using it, you'll be like, wait a minute, it sounds different.
If even they use it sparingly because they understand context and the weight behind it.
Yes.
Even behind closed doors, there's certain words that they may not necessarily want to use because it's almost like cursing. You know, like everybody knows, you know, you don't use curse words adarani, you know, and if you were to emit those when you're around parents or folks who are older or whatever, whether you're a kid who's born here or not, you know, in an African household, there's a line up or you've crossed, you know. So again, if you turn that around and see that, you know, what Tucha is saying, what you're talking about, and there's other words, you know, that have a lot of weight and you just don't use adarani.
No, you don't.
So you're right. When you hear it, you're like, man, do these guys understand or know the context behind this? Or are you using it because you saw it in a movie or it's in a song or on YouTube or something? No.
And that is one thing. But also learning, you know, like when you learn the history of it, when you get to understand the genesis and what it has gone through, the different the way it has morphed over time, what it used to mean, what it means now, you know, and you not probably being of that culture, in as much as you're black, in as much as, you know, you're African, you moved here, you immigrated here, you know, that is one thing. You know, your child being born here, still that child has got roots. Still that child, you can actually trace his or her root. You can be like, you know what, the father, the mother, okay, when you look at the parents of the parents, you can say Kondele, you can say Moranga, you can say Bukungu, Wargadud. You can. Without that, you're looking at, okay, let's look at where these are, okay, maybe, you know, son of a slave, or, okay, you know, there's a, you know, finding your roots on PBS. You know, that's a good place to start to, you know, when you want to really find out who, what, where people come from, because that's what some people are actually, you know, doing. You know, they want to find where they're from. When you find somebody's 10% or 50% Irish or whatever, just so that you can understand where you are from. And, you know, I'm not, you know, Tucha says over here, you know, what I found out is that if you speak loud and audibly, when you don't, then you don't need an American accent.
That thing, but that thing of being heard, you know, like being understood, I think that's just one of the most lame arguments. You know, like I'm changing my accent so that people can understand me. I think it's a very lame argument, especially coming from a Kenyan. Those of us who, you know, like work in jobs where you're talking to people every day, and even as a Kenyan, just speaking, you know, like a lot of people will acknowledge, you guys have very nice, clean English. So this thing of trying to sound a certain type of way, that you know,
now,
like,
let me ask you, Ali.
yeah.
Okay. You find that somebody has owned, let's say, for example, a cleaning business or a restaurant for about 40 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes, let's say, it is, let's say that he's Hispanic or she's Hispanic or Greek or Roman or whatever, the accent is deep. And when I say the accent, you know, like, you can tell, you know, you can tell, you know, the Italian,
Yeah,
Algerian or whatever, it is locked in. And sometimes they even need a translator. Guys have been here for 30, 40 years. Why, you know, those are them. Okay, fine. But let's say, for example, some of us have been here for, you know, 40 years. Omosh has been here for about maybe 35. Accent is still the same. There hasn't been any change. But yet we struggle to want to be different instead of just being who we are and accepting who we are. And I think somebody, it's either something that you read or either something, it's a comment that you read, that we struggle to change, yet we don't need to, because you know what? Many people don't adjust themselves. It's like us are the ones who take the initiative to want to change because we want to fit in. And sometimes I find that just mother than you.
Yeah, and you know, here the interesting thing, I think Kenya is saying hapo kwa nice clean English, lots to unpack. The reason why I say that is because the US Embassy, when they're sending you know, like the State Department, when they're dispatching their diplomats to the different parts of the world, you know, there's always requirements that come with going to certain parts of the world, like language requirements and everything. So in Kenya, there's no language requirement. Do you know that's, I found that very shocking. You know, like a diplomat going to Kenya, an American diplomat going to Kenya, they're not required to learn Kiswahili. Because I think the Americans have figured out, you know, like almost anywhere you go in Kenya, you'll find people who are proficient in speaking English. So in Tanzania, they're still required to learn Swahili. So if they're going next door to Tanzania, they'll still be put in a classroom for I think 6 months before they're shipped out there, purely learning a language. But now in Kenya, they're not required, you know, like, and this is the thing, this is the double-edged sword, you know, like, yes, we've become, like very good in English, but at what expense? Like, are we gonna start losing, like our vernacular languages? Are we gonna start losing Swahili?
Problem.
Swahili, I think, like has a sense of security, being official and being both national and official, with books being written and everything. But I still worry about the other languages. We need to find a way of making them live permanently. And how do you make languages live permanently? By publishing books, by having it used in education systems. So the way, especially in a town like Nairobi. Nairobi is a very interesting place. In Nairobi, you'll find places to learn German, French, Turkish, and even Greek. But you go try to find a place to learn Kikamba. You'll have trouble, like finding a place to learn Kikamba. And I think within our education system, within this CBC, I know sometimes when people look at these languages, they look at them, like with an antagonistic lens, because our politics has been ethnicized, unfortunately. But I think if we could find a creative way of integrating, all the languages that we speak in Kenya into our education system, I think that will be, in fact, that will introduce a way of making it easier for people who are non-native speakers. Like if I want to learn Luo, for example, I can easily do it. Or if I want my child to learn Luo, I can easily enroll them in a program or in a school that has, like some curriculum or some classes in the Luo. We should normalize that. We should have that paradigm shift.
And actually, to what to that paradigm shift,
he used it in a sentence.
Yeah, before. And I think we've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
We're having those. We had a show about vernacular stations.
Yeah.
And we said it would be nice to have, how we have French Cultural Center.
Yes.
And Goethe Institute or whatever. If you go to Kisumu, you have Kisumu Cultural Center.
I think the Subas have one in Homa Bay County.
Okay. And that is something that's supposed to be whatever. If you go, let's say, for example, to Western. Where Micah?
And it should be normal.
Are you Weta? Are you Mudavadi? Where are you? I don't know where.
But his name does not betray.
It does, Micah. Oh, check. So, like, you learn Luya and the very many, whatever. And just learn it. You go to Baringo, Baringo, Rift, Kalenjin. You go, you learn, you go to Northeastern, you learn. At least you learn the language, the lingua. That way, it is not used as a political whatever. But also what happens is, you get to learn, the culture. In Western, wherever it is, you learn. And that way now, those differences bring you closer. Not that they divide you.
You see the issue that's happening right now,
so annoying,
to divert us a bit to the war that's happening in Ukraine. For the people who know, like the history of that region when Ukraine was still part of the greater Soviet
USSR.
Union or USSR. So those republics that were annexed, and one of the reasons why there's so much fear of Russia, when they were annexed, they were forced to use the Russian languages. All those countries have their own languages, but they were forced to use Russian. They're forced to use Russian, socially, officially, and even in their education system. So a lot of, you'll find that a lot of older Ukrainians who are educated under the Soviet era, they all speak Russian, sometimes not necessarily by choice. And yes, there's also ethnic Russians in Ukraine, but because also the education system, they were forced to have the education system in Russia. So now, Ukraine, after they pulled away from Russia in 1991, they worked so hard in bringing back their language, and bringing it to the forefront in business, in education and in all those things. And this happened to all those small republics, like Georgia, Moldova, and all those small republics that had actually been annexed by the Soviet Union. So you see other countries are working hard to cling on to their languages. So we should be doing the same.
Now, before Micah chimes in over here, Tucha says, you know, I was happy when Ramogi FM started Ramogi TV. I'm always watching, even if my Luo is 10% at best. Now, Slay says here, Tucha, teach me Kikuyu and I teach you Luo. Deal.
Hiya.
Over here,
No,
we haven't even had Omosh offering to teach us the Luo, but it's okay. But you know what?
It's all right. You can go. Slay will be Nini, but she's
dealing with career. You know, the thing is,
they need to charge us. Kwani, these things we are carrying over here on the Nini free.
What do you mean?
They need to charge us for this Nini, this hookup. Tucha and Nini need to pay us a fee.
Where, what is the story?
Facilitation fee.
Hold on.
This is a paradigm shift.
Wait, Mika.
No, that's not a paradigm shift.
That
wasn't a paradigm shift.
Don't force. Wait, Mika. Abantu banje murembe muno. Endelea.
Just mother in the language.
Aongea na Kiluya na nini whatever. Alafu then you translate. Tufundishe. Satan.
No, it's too late to start learning a new language right now. Actually, it's too late to continue with this show. We need to wrap it up.
Ni kweli hivyo Mika amesema. Mika ameongea ukweli.
He just removed his gloves. He started unwrapping the bandages.
Lakini you know what? If people can learn French as grown-ups, people who go work abroad, if people can learn, you know, like...
People can learn their mother tongue.
Yeah.
They can learn other languages.
Yes.
This is the thing. I always tell people this. Don't ever feel like your accent says you're not smart enough. You're smart enough to a fact that you understand at least 3 languages. Kenyans understand at least 3 languages. At most 2. Like at the least 2. But when you understand language, that your mother tongue, English, Swahili, and you're fluent in all of them, you can think in all of them, and you can talk in all of them. So the fact that you have an accent should never be a way for you to look at yourself and think that you're not intelligent enough to be where you are. You are where you are by merit. By nini. You've worked hard, umejifikisha pale umefika. Don't ever doubt yourself. Still lazima code switch. Code switching is good if you can, but still lazima code switch. These people will understand you. Just the way the Spanish have accents, just the way the French have accents.
Yeah.
The Germans have accents. The Arabs have accents. The Irish have accents, the Scottish have accents. You can have an accent too. Own it, be proud of it. Don't force yourself to speak in funny ways that you don't understand.
Listen
and
to
that.
Yeah. No, I was saying
relax.
Yeah, no, I was saying listen to people like Ariana Huffington, you know, like the owner of the Huffington Post, you know, the publication. You know, I think she's Greek. And she wears that Greek accent very proudly, you know, like she speaks very well, but she doesn't make an attempt to, you know, like to sound a certain type of way. And she's been in the US literally, you know, like more than half her life. You know, like listen to the Arnold Schwarzeneggers. They don't. They'll, you know, you understand us, Shauriako. You know, like make fun of us, Shauriako. You know, I'm still the Terminator. You know, I'm still, you know, like the former governor of California. So ni shauri yako. And I think that's the attitude we need to come with, you know, like with the way Nigerians come through. You know, like there's so many things that we can actually learn from them in how, you know, like even when they come through with their dressing,
be proud.
They are so unapologetic, you know, like, and they're so loud. And the other people that I also admire are South Africans. You know, South Africans, when they start speaking with those, rolling those R's, you know, like rolling those R's, you will understand them, you know, like, and if you don't understand them, shauri yako, kajipange. And you see, they have, and I think, you know, like, especially in places like South Africa, I think they've learned, you know, like, how not to be intimidated by the fear of whiteness, you know, because, you know, they've lived through apartheid and they've lived through all kinds of evils that were happening there. So they've understood, you know, the value of not fearing whiteness and of not trying to be like them, you know, so as to be accepted. I mean, to me, like, the thing is, if someone doesn't accept you, the loss is his, ni shauri yake. You know, like, you shouldn't be sitting there worrying at it, or maybe if I twist my tongue in this way, you know, maybe I might fit in this group, or maybe I might fit in that group. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo hapo. But yeah, that's the deal. Uno.
Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho, meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Micah, chikade. Tokaende.
Siku moja tu acha tu hii kitu ishero bila kwa rap. Anyway.
This guy.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Always has to injection.
Yeah, and then
no, it's Micah.
It's been another wonderful Friday where we've been with you here and catching up with you. Kama kawaida, I want to thank everybody who showed up, my fellow co-hosts. Our fans, we always do this because of you. Without you, basically got to our WhatsApp group. So, everybody, it's getting warmer. Enjoy yourself. We're going outside. Remember, still be careful. But we still have a pandemic. But enjoy the good weather. Take care of yourselves. And remember, don't drink and drive. Be blessed. Enjoy your week.
Yo. Asanteni, watu wetu, wanguvu, to all our mafans. This chat is, it's like, I think we need to find a way of vocalizing the chat. Like, it's like there's another show going on in the chat.
It's a show within a show.
Yes. Like, we are over here, as guys, we are talking, but there's another, in fact, like, the real show is here in the chat. We're going to have to figure out a way
we're gonna have to hire an assistant to be notifying us on the chats.
Maybe we'll
be summarizing the chats.
I'm afraid of even suggesting a Telegram or WhatsApp group at Nyamaze.
Okay. You will think about it. Yeah. You will.
You see how things are taken to another level.
DJ Tucha admin. Carry on. Sorry, Omosh.
Wacha Nyamaze.
Wakiwa na slay. Okay, sorry.
Those two, can you imagine those two are the ones who are the admins of a chat?
There's only one way to find out, bruv.
Hey. Okay. To everybody out there, have a good week. Thank your God or that higher being for, the blessings that are abound that you have. We are all here. We have, every day, we gotta thank that guy upstairs. So if your person is downstairs, thank him. Enjoy your family, enjoy yourself. We only live once, and have a good week. Be blessed. We'll be back here next week, God willing. And thank you again to our fans. It's you guys who make us do this thing. And of course, to you, my fellow presenters, including that guy of
party people.
Yeah. With that, I bid you all adieu until next week.
Okay.
Peace.
All right, asante sana Omosh. And Randall anasema call zake zimelengwa. I don't know, I think we should give Randall if he's still there.
Is Randall, are you still there?
Is he still there?
No, 202-683-4570, press star 5 to speak.
Okay.
If he comes in, I'll
okay. Yeah, we apologize. Lately people have been preferring to do a lot of chatting than calling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've not been doing a very good job at monitoring that call line. So I guess, there's a couple of callins that we are missing. But yeah, want to thank everyone for tuning in for both conversations. Like that conversation that we had in the first hour, I felt like that was very important. And this is something that came in a lot of volume. So I'm hoping, the summaries that we tried to do today were a bit helpful in helping you understand, what exactly is happening in Kenya. And this is very important because it may come to affect issues to do with the diaspora. There's a couple of amendments that we want as a diaspora, because especially we want our own representation in the Kenyan parliament and in the Kenyan Senate. So this ruling, what it says that we still have that window of opportunity that we can still do that. So that's why it's important for us to know such things. And I also just want to thank everybody else who tuned in, who contributed, who listened, and who was part of the show, because we are not who we are without you. Na asanteni sana. Na kwa hayo machache, yeyote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado haijabadilika, ni ile ile 1-800 mteule. Operator akishika simu, mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu, na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Aiden, Daddy loves you. Njeri, Daddy loves you. Nemo, Daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed.
Randall bado hajaingia?
Aya, ndio huyo.
Aya. Anasema he's on hold, like it's like calling Comcast.
Mwambie hold.
Ayuko.
Hold on. That's the host. Kwani anafanya hii? Si press star 5 to speak, brother man.
Well,
Randall
going once.
Wacha kutuangusha. Haya, hold on.
Ama labda simu imekataa.
Hajakataa. Yuko hapa.
Okay. Has he pressed star 5?
Hold on. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Randall.
Hey, sema.
There he goes.
Ana sound ni kama tu yuko hapa. Karibu sana Randall.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When we started discussing this language part of things, it started raining over here. Stima zikakatika. So as sure is third world, computer is off. So I'm trying to do this thing on the phone and I can't talk, and have the Facebook feature with the live stream is kind of limited in what you can do with it. Once the screen goes off, I'm missing the conversation, but I can type comments, so I can't even hear responses. But at least now I've been able to get through.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, tunakusikia.
Yeah.
We're waiting for you to finish.
Oh, okay. That was my part. You guys pretty much touched on everything I said. For me, I was raised to speak good English, grammar, written and spoken, not to use profanity, nowhere to use it in the right place. And yes, I cringe when I hear the N-word in Kenya. It's happening a lot more than usual. Because like you guys said, they don't know the context, the history of the word. So to them, it's just, any other word, and sometimes I have to take time and explain to people, like, this is offensive, you shouldn't be doing it like this, and like this. Some people will listen to you, some will think you're explaining it to them, you are better than them, and take it as an insult, that kind of thing. But but you guys had wrapped up everything else.
Oh,
at least we've had the opportunity to talk to you. I mean, Mazeo, you're on the other side of the pond, 254. Holding it down. I mean, so much was said. We tried to read comments, but sometimes, the show has to go on or whatever.
Na Randall tutapanga, like now that election is approaching, we will really need, like someone, like on the ground to also translate to us, like what's happening down there. Because out here, we're looking at things from a perspective of mainstream media and social media, but there's always that perspective on the ground that we don't have, which I think, you might be of very great value, to add on to some of the conversations that we have, like especially for example, real quick, conversation ya BBI. Do you feel like people, like have an understanding of what really happened out there on the ground, or what's your feel of it?
No, people out here don't really know the details of what's going on with BBI. They don't know the details of the constitution that is being amended. So, like you guys were mentioning public participation.
when the constitution was amended, before it was enacted, there was proper public participation where you go locally to the ward level, have meetings. There's somebody taking meetings and keeping track of who is talking, keeping a record from everywhere in Kenya, and it's not a cheap affair. It's an expensive affair to do.
Yes.
So always it's funding. You see, even election registration is for a limited time only because it's expensive. They eat through that money so quickly. Unless now you can go to a registration center, which are supposed to be, in theory, you can do voter registration at any time of the year, provided you get to the voter registration center. The whole thing about moving it to different places is to make it convenient for other people, for everybody.
Okay, asante sana Randall. We are we're gonna keep engaging on this, and we'll figure out what to do, because I think this next few months are very important for Kenya's future, and not just the presidential election. We're also talking, like local elections, because these local elections have a very big impact on who's your governor, who's your senator, who's your member of parliament, who's your member of county assembly. These things are having a very big impact, and you're right now in Kenya, you're starting to see, like the third world counties from the first world counties separating like the Red Sea. It's now only 10 years.
Yes.
So guess what? This gap is gonna become bigger, like as people, like keep electing leaders who are not good, you're gonna see that gap get bigger, like with counties like Makueni, which are surging ahead, very fast because of good leadership. So I think, like these are some of the things that we're gonna be having conversations about.
And we'll schedule something. We'll keep in touch. We schedule something at least as a utupatie 411, utupatie mwelekeo.
Mwelekeo, and give us the lowdown.
Yes, sir.
I've participated in a video chat on TMZ, like where you guys can let the people who are doing comments be able to video in. So if you guys can work on a system like that, it would be much to your advantage.
Wacha tupewe sponsorship monies. Sponsorship.
Tutafutie sponsors huko.
Tutafutie ma sponsorship monies.
Ruto said no.
Wacha. And on that note, Tommy, asante sana. We'll hit you up on the side. But Maze, asante, man.
Cool.
All right. DJ Machachari Budabos, take us out, Gabe.
In the conference.
Is your